The morning sunlight spilled through the cracked blinds of a tiny apartment on the east side of the city. Inside, a man named Ethan Cole tightened his worn-out boots while his 6-year-old daughter Maya sat at the kitchen table drawing on a piece of cardboard she'd found from an old cereal box. Her crayons were dull, her clothes hand-me-downs, but her smile lit the dim room brighter than any sunbeam. Ethan glanced at her and smiled softly, though behind his tired eyes lived the kind of pain only a single parent truly understood: loss, exhaustion, and a desperate fight to survive one more day. He had once been a decorated Marine, a man of purpose, discipline, and courage. But life after service wasn't what he expected. A car accident 3 years ago took his wife, leaving him with Maya and medical bills that drowned his savings. Since then, he'd worked odd-job security shifts, warehouse loading, sometimes even washing cars to keep food on the table. The city didn't care about medals. It cared about money. And money was something Ethan hadn't seen much of in a long time. That day began like any other. He kissed Maya's forehead, packed her lunch, just a peanut butter sandwich and an apple, and dropped her off at her small public school before heading to his part-time security gig at Brightline Plaza, a high-end shopping complex owned by one of the wealthiest men in the city, Richard Hale, CEO of Hale Industries. The plaza was crowded with mid-morning shoppers, coffee in one hand, designer bags in the other. Ethan stood near the entrance, scanning the crowd with trained eyes. He had no idea that within the next few hours, his quiet, unseen life would collide with that of the city's most powerful man and change everything. Before we dive deeper into Ethan's story, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of doing good, even when no one's watching, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness Journal. Your support helps stories like Ethan's reach more hearts around the world. The first sign of trouble came with a scream, a woman's voice sharp, terrified. Ethan turned instantly toward the sound near the playground section outside the plaza. There, a small boy no older than 7 was clutching an ice cream cone frozen in place as 2 masked men sprinted from the parking lot toward him. One held a gun. The other shouted, "Grab the kid." The mother's cries filled the air as chaos broke out. People ducked, screamed, ran for cover. But Ethan didn't think his instincts took over. He bolted across the plaza, pushing through the panicked crowd. The little boy stumbled backward, falling to the ground. The gunman aimed. "Get down," Ethan roared, diving in front of the child. The gun went off. Pain seared through his left shoulder. His body hit the ground hard, but his arms wrapped around the trembling boy. "You're safe, kid," he whispered through gritted teeth as his vision blurred. Then everything went dark. When Ethan woke, he was in a hospital bed, his shoulder bandaged and his body aching. Maya sat beside him, her tiny hand holding his. She'd been crying. "Daddy, they said you're a hero," she said softly, her voice trembling. "You saved a boy." He smiled weakly. "It's okay, sweetheart. I'm okay." A few minutes later, the door opened, and a man in a sharp black suit stepped inside, followed by security agents and a woman clutching a purse tightly. Ethan recognized the boy, immediately the same child he'd shielded. The man introduced himself. "I'm Richard Hale," he said, his tone measured but emotional. "You saved my son, Nathan." Ethan nodded politely, just doing what anyone would have done. But Richard shook his head. "No," he said firmly, "most people ran away. You didn't. You took a bullet for a stranger's child." For a moment, silence filled the room. Then Richard's wife, Clara, stepped forward and clasped Ethan's hand with tears in her eyes. "You're the reason our boy's alive. We'll never forget that." Ethan didn't want gratitude. He wanted to go home, heal, and return to work before his paycheck got docked. He refused their offer of money politely, telling them he didn't do it for reward. But Richard Hale wasn't a man who forgot debts, especially not one that involved his son's life. The next day, just after sunrise, Ethan was pouring cereal for Maya when a deep rumble echoed outside. He walked to the window and froze. 6 black SUVs were lined up across the narrow street, their tinted windows glinting under the morning light. Neighbors peeked out from behind curtains. Maya tugged his sleeve, eyes wide. "Daddy, who are they?" Before he could answer, there was a knock on the door, firm, deliberate. Ethan opened it slowly. Standing there was Richard Hale again, this time without his suit jacket, looking more like a man than a CEO. "Ethan," he said quietly, "we need to talk." Behind him stood a few of his security staff, but their presence wasn't threatening, it was protective. Richard explained that the police had traced the kidnappers to a gang targeting wealthy families. The attackers had learned where Ethan lived and might seek revenge for stopping their plan. "You're not safe here," Richard said. "Neither is your daughter. Let me move you somewhere secure, at least for a while." Ethan hesitated. Pride battled fear inside him. He didn't want charity. But when he looked down at Maya, clutching her teddy bear, he swallowed hard and nodded. Okay, for her. Within an hour, Ethan and Maya were in the backseat of one of the SUVs, watching their old apartment fade from view. They were taken to a gated estate outside the city, a place Ethan had only ever seen in magazines. The mansion was surrounded by gardens, a lake, and security that made the White House look careless. For the first time in years, Maya had her own room. She gasped when she saw its walls painted soft yellow, toys neatly stacked, a view of the garden. "Daddy, look," she squealed, spinning around. Ethan smiled, tears threatening to fall. He hadn't seen her this happy in so long. Over the next few days, the Hale family treated them not as guests, but as family. Clara would bring fresh breakfast for Maya, and Nathan, the boy Ethan, followed her everywhere, calling her my hero's daughter. Ethan helped around the estate, fixing things, tending the garden, refusing to just sit idle. Richard admired his humility, his quiet strength, and the way he carried himself without bitterness despite life's blows. One evening, as the sun dipped below the trees, Richard joined Ethan on the porch. "You know," he said, "I built an empire, but somewhere along the way I forgot what real courage looks like. You reminded me." Ethan chuckled softly. "Courage isn't fancy, sir. It's just doing the right thing when it hurts." Richard looked at him for a long moment. "Then let me do the right thing now." He handed Ethan an envelope. Inside was a job offer. Head of security for Hale Industries, with full benefits, a new apartment, and a salary that could change their lives forever. Ethan stared at it, unable to speak. "I don't want you to feel like you owe me anything," Richard added. "This isn't charity, it's trust. You protected what matters most to me. Let me do the same for you and Maya." That night Ethan couldn't sleep. He walked into Maya's room, watching her sleep peacefully under soft blankets. The weight of years, the loneliness, the fear, the struggle pressed on his chest until tears slipped silently down his face. For the first time since his wife's death, he whispered, "We're going to be okay, baby. We're finally going to be okay." Weeks turned into months. Ethan excelled at his new role, earning the respect of everyone in the company. Maya joined a good school, made friends, and her laughter became the background music of their new life. Sometimes she'd visit Richard's office to play with Nathan, while Ethan stood watch outside, still alert, still humble, but now a man who'd been seen, appreciated, and given a second chance. And though he never sought recognition, his story made its way into the local news. Ex-Marine saves CEO's son. But Ethan didn't care for headlines. What mattered was that his daughter would grow up knowing her father never gave up. That courage didn't need wealth or fame, it just needed love. One morning, Ethan stood by the lake, sunlight glinting off the water. Richard approached quietly beside him. "You ever think about that day?" Richard asked. Ethan smiled faintly. "Every day. But not because I got shot. Because it reminded me that no matter how far someone's fallen, one act of kindness can lift them right back up." The two men stood in silence, the sound of children laughing in the distance. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that kindness, bravery, and second chances can still change lives, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness Journal. Every interaction helps keep stories like this alive, reminding the world that good people still exist. And before this story ends, I have one special request for you. Comment below. Kindness always finds its way back, because sometimes the smallest act, a man diving in front of a child, can ripple across lives, healing hearts, mending hope, and proving that even in a cold world there are still people who'd take a bullet for someone they've never met. That day, Ethan Cole didn't just save a boy. He reminded everyone watching that real heroes don't wear capes, they wear scars and smiles and keep walking forward no matter how heavy the world gets.